the forgotten worship of Yahweh before the appearance of Israel. Have you ever wondered if Yahweh was known only to Israel, or if his name, presence, and worship reached people much before the nation of Israel existed? Think about it. Even before Moses was on Mount Sinai, before the tablets of the Ten Commandments were carved, and even before Jacob became Israel, there were already whispers about Yahweh. So, who are these ancient people who knew his name? How did they come to worship the God we now associate with Israel? And what does this tell us about God's larger plan for humanity, a plan that transcends borders, nations, and time frames? This is the mystery of the worship of Yahweh before Israel, and believe me, what you're about to learn may forever change your perception of the Bible. Before we delve deeper, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts in the comments. We enjoy hearing your opinions, and your questions might be the topic of a future video. Let's explore this mystery together. Let's start with the basics. Who is Yahweh? Perhaps you recall the powerful moment in Exodus 3 when Moses stands before the burning bush, trembling, uncertain, and full of questions, and asks, "What is your name?" And God responds with a phrase that still stirs the soul, "I am who I am," Exodus 3 verse 14. It's profound, eternal, and unshakable. Then, in the next verse, God tells Moses, "Say to the children of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you." Exodus 3 verse 15. Stop and consider that you realized God of the fathers, which means it wasn't the first time people had heard of Yahweh. The name Yahweh, rooted in a Hebrew verb, means more than a simple label. It speaks of God's self-existence, that he was, is, and always will be. But here's where things get really interesting. The name Yahweh didn't first appear at the burning bush. In fact, people already knew it before Moses ever set foot on holy ground.
Surprised?
Let's see how the divine name appears in unexpected places. Have you ever heard of Melchizedek? Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was a priest of the Most High God, Genesis 14 verse 18. Wait, a priest of the Most High God before Moses, before the law, before the Levitical priesthood? Yes, Melchizedek already served Yahweh, and interestingly, Abraham recognized him, and Melchizedek blessed Abraham, saying, "Blessed be Abraham by the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be the Most High God who has delivered your enemies into your hand." Then Abraham gave him a tenth of everything, Genesis 14 verses 19 to 20. It's significant that Melchizedek, a non-Israelite priest, was already connected to Yahweh and was not rebuked or corrected. Instead, he was accepted into fellowship with the leaders of Israel. What does this tell us? That God was already moving beyond the borders of Israel. He was known, worshipped, and revealed himself to seekers in distant lands. It wasn't about ethnicity or nationality. It was about a heart. Seeking the truth, Melchizedek is a vivid reminder that the reach of Yahweh was never limited to one nation. His story shows that worship of the one true God was quietly spreading like a light in the darkness. Before we continue with the video, I must address a very important and delicate topic. I'm talking about the excessive consumption of pornography by Christians. This practice has been growing a lot in recent years and seems to have no solution because it's a delicate subject few people speak about it. That's why we developed the method. At the end of the prison, with it, you'll have a daily plan of closeness to God, complete material that includes strategies for digital protection and mental renewal designed to help you restore your spiritual connection with God and eliminate once and for all that feeling of guilt you have when consuming such content. If you're interested in transforming your relationship with God, click now on the first pinned comment and take your first step.
Now let's
return to the video now. Here's an astonishing idea. What if one of the oldest books in the Bible, possibly written before Moses, revealed deep truths about Yahweh, even though its main character isn't even Israeli? Let's meet Job. Job wasn't from Israel. He lived in the land of Oz, far from Canaan, yet the entire book revolves around his relationship with God. Look at how Job speaks of him. "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Job 1 verse 21. Yes, it's Yahweh, the Hebrew text. If Job uses Yahweh, the sacred name of God, throughout the book, Job addresses God not as a distant deity, but as a personal, just, and omnipotent Lord. He seeks to speak with him to defend his stance and even declares in faith, "For I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand upon the earth." Job 19 verse 25. It's powerful. So, what does this tell us? Job had a real and intimate knowledge of God, not as a tribal deity, not as one of many gods, but as a living savior, and interestingly, Job's friends. Though flawed, they also spoke of God and grappled with moral and spiritual issues just like us today. This means the knowledge of Yahweh, of the just, personal creator. God wasn't isolated in Israel. It was known, discussed, and revered by people all over the ancient world, and this shouldn't surprise us since God created all humanity, not just one nation. Romans 1 verses 19 to 20 emphasizes this truth, "For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them, his invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen and understood from what has been made." Romans 1 verses 19 to 20. The traces of Yahweh are everywhere, so whether it's Job, Melchizedek, Jethro, or Balaam, we see the same thing. God revealed himself, and people responded. But now let's return to reality and figure out why this is important for you and me today. Here's a figure that really challenges our expectations. Balaam is one of the most mysterious characters in the Bible, a man outside of Israel with questionable motivations, and yet somehow capable of hearing Yahweh directly. Let's take a closer look. And God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" Numbers 22:9. Did you catch that God came to Balaam not in a dream or a vague impression, but in direct conversation, just as he did with Abraham, Moses, and the prophets? Balaam responds in verse 13, "Go back to the men, and tell them the Lord Yahweh will not let me go with you." Numbers 22:13. Stop to consider this. It's astonishing that Balaam, an Israelite living in the region of Pethor near the Euphrates, modern-day Syria or Mesopotamia, uses the sacred name of God, Yahweh, not just any God, not just Elohim, but specifically Yahweh, the personal and sacred name revealed to Moses at the burning bush. So the question is, how did Balaam know the voice of Yahweh? How did he learn to recognize it to the point of obeying his command, at least initially? And why did Yahweh choose to speak to someone outside his covenant people? The answers are both mysterious and revealing. Although Balaam eventually shows himself to be greedy, proud, and spiritually compromised, as described later in 2 Peter 2 verse 15 and Revelation 2 verse 14, his initial role reveals something important. God revealed himself far beyond the borders of Israel. His name, his voice, and his power were known even to pagan prophets. It's important to understand that Balaam wasn't righteous, but he was spiritually aware, and God chose to speak to him. And when Balaam is hired by King Balak to curse Israel, God turns his words into blessings. How can I curse whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce whom the Lord has not denounced? Numbers 23:8. Balaam, in the end, delivers some of the most beautiful prophecies about the future of Israel, including a messianic vision. "I see it, but not now. I behold it, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob, a scepter shall rise out of Israel." Numbers 24:17. That is, this foreign and flawed prophet is used to proclaim a vision of Jesus, the future king. It's not simple, it's complex, but it shows us something powerful. The voice of Yahweh is not limited by location, origin, or human plans. Even when people try to use God for selfish purposes, his purposes always prevail, and the story of Balaam reminds us that God always had a global plan. He revealed himself to people long before Israel became a nation, and he continues to do so after. So, after all we've discovered, let's pose the main question. Why is this important? Why is it relevant to know that they worshipped Yahweh long before Israel and that his name was known by people like Job, Melchizedek, Jethro, Balaam, and others? Here's the reason. It reminds us that God's heart has always been for the whole world, not just for one tribe, one family, or one nation from the beginning. Yahweh made himself known to all who sought him from the rising of the sun to its setting. The name of the Lord is to be praised. Psalms 134 verse 3. He worked through silent hearts in forgotten lands, spoke to those outside the social spotlight, and called people to him even before the covenant was engraved in stone. This means God's story is wider than we thought, and you are part of that story. Perhaps you always thought God acted only through certain people. Maybe you felt like an outsider, as if you weren't from the right environment or didn't know all the proper traditions. But here's the truth. God sees you. He sought you out long before you sought him. As he spoke with Job, walked with Enoch, and called Abraham from a pagan land, he calls you today, and the beauty of the gospel is this. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Romans 10 verse 13. That name is Yahweh, and in the New Testament, that name is revealed in his Son, Yeshua Jesus, whose name means Yahweh saves. What will you do with this mystery? Will you seek him even if you're outside the usual boundaries? Will you listen to his voice as many did before the appearance of Israel? Will you respond to the God who, through the ages and cultures, has sought to meet you? If this message has, if you moved, let us know in the comments below what surprised you the most. What questions do you still have? We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the journey with you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear that God's love extends beyond what we could ever imagine. Thank you for joining us today to explore one of the most underestimated truths of the Bible, the mystery of the worship of Yahweh before Israel. And remember, the story of Yahweh didn't start with Israel, and it doesn't end with you. It continues through every heart that says yes to him. Until next time, stay curious, stay faithful, and stay rooted in the truth.